Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very privileged to have Mr. Chace here. He was a pro wrestler for 20 years, and now you're a podcaster. And we're just going to get to know him and have a great conversation. So, Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I mean, you covered a lot of it. I did independent pro wrestling for 20 plus years. Had the ability and the pleasure of working with guys like Jake the Snake Roberts, Doink the Clown, guys who are currently in WWE or AEW today, Adam Cole, James Ellsworth, Drew Gulak, all those guys who are in WWE. There's a couple of referees, Jessica Heiser and Derek Edwards, who I also got to work with here, in Baltimore before they were famous. So, I mean, it was a ride. It was fun, and now it's the kind of thing I'm doing the podcast thing to just keep myself entertained in any way I can still entertain people out there in some way, shape, or form.
So what's your podcast about?
My podcast, pretty much it's the Happy Hour Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Don't type it into any of the podcast platforms as Happy Hour Podcast, because you will get 900 happy hour oriented podcasts. I always tell everybody to go to www.thehhpod.com. That's the easiest way to find all of our content. But no, it kind of spun off like a little bit towards the ending part of my wrestling career. Me and some of my friends started to do a local TV show, it was kind of like Wayne's World mixed with the Man Show. And we would just get drunk and record ourselves being stupid. And then it kind of got to the point where we were doing interviews. We were doing porn star interviews. We had Jessie Jane on the show 4 times. We had Nikki Benz, Lisa Ann. We had Sonny Sandoval from POD on the show. Oh man, we had a who's who of people on that show. And that concluded around 2013. The guy I was doing it with, we had a set in his basement that we built from scratch, which was our set. He had a grease fire, and the whole set got burned down. We lost season 4, season 5 of the show, so all that content's long gone. And then it was the kind of thing where I would tell people about that show, and one of my good friends I always credit, he was like, "Brother, bring it back as a podcast." And originally I was like, well, I'm not sure. There's so many podcasts out there. Like, it's hard to, find your ground doing podcasts. And he's like, no, dude, just do it. Like, who cares? He's like, I'll listen to it. He's like, even if it's just me, just do it. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. Kept the same theme. Just have drinks, not really any real plan. Like, I don't really map out a lot of questions, kind of like, hey, let's have a conversation. Like, it's just kind of like if we all were to sit down and have a few beers, the kind of, stuff I would ask you about, or the kind of stuff, my personality coming out like, hey, and it train wrecks, but it's meant to train wreck, and it's fun. It's real fun. So,
I had somebody tell me that podcasts were on the way out.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, people are kind of fed up with like Hollywood stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're falling out of love with Hollywood. And they're looking for alternative stuff. They like the independent stuff. Even like indie films, I've noticed, are starting to kind of pick up, and people are doing like their own comic books and all this other stuff.
Independent professional wrestling.
Yeah, they got folks that make their own movies on YouTube, or the fan films, and people are loving this stuff. They're eating it up. Podcasts are to me, they're still building the strength. They haven't hit that peak yet.
Oh yeah.
Just like the common guy's point of view on a lot of stuff too.
Yeah. I think, I think what it is with podcasts is that it's such a saturated market. Like, you have to I look at it with pro wrestling, and that's one thing I was always taught in pro wrestling is always stand out, have your gear look different, have things, just try to stand out the best that you can. But it's so hard to stand out because there's so much out there. It's hard to appeal to WWE because there's so many guys out there trying to get in. And it's the same thing with podcasts, movies, TV, anything. If you're trying to be an actor, there's so many people trying to be an actor out there that it's hard to break that mold. But once you break that mold and people know that you're there, then it's just going to keep building from there. And that's how I look at it with all that.
Well, you got people with so many different interests.
Oh yeah.
So they're looking for like-minded folks. I don't know, maybe they're into building model trains and somebody does a show about model trains.
Yeah.
So you're going to have an audience.
Yeah.
And it is saturated. Like with my I do a paranormal show. There's so many paranormal shows out there.
Yeah.
But I like to look at things at a different angle, and I'll get people to talk about something other than chasing ghosts or Bigfoot or whatever. If they're, say, I got a buddy of mine, Mustafa. He was on Ghost Hunters.
Okay.
And I try to get into different stuff that he's into, because I think people would find more interest of what do they do outside of this. You never know.
Yeah, like with us, like, I mean, our show, we have adult film stars on, we have authors on, we have local bands on, we have big bands. Like we had Doug Bradley, who is Pinhead. He's been on our show.
Oh, wow.
We've had Natasha Nice. Everybody knows who she is if they follow the adult film world. We've had CJ Graham, who played Jason in Friday the 13th Part 6. So, our show really kind of bounces all over the place. It's like, person A may not tune in for Natasha Nice, person B may, but person A may tune in for Doug Bradley. So, but we always put like our fun, like we have fun little games that we play. We just be us, and we tell everybody like, hey, this isn't going to be like any normal podcast, that you've been on before. We're just going to come on, we're going to have some beers, shoot the shit, and have fun. And everybody that's came on has always had fun. So, we must be doing something right. Everybody has a great time. We have people. I mean, I don't even really need to book my own guests anymore. Like I work with so many different PR people now that just keep on sending me guests that I don't even need to do any work really to get any guests. They're just like, okay, boom. I'm like, all right, this date. So
shoot, might have to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that without question. I'll shoot you whoever.
Well, the guy that got us together, he wrote me a message and said he was going to try something different. I'm like, oh man, that sucks, because he's been giving me some really good people on the show. Good kid too, he stuck to his word, and I was reluctant when I first heard about him, but he's come through. I mean, he had Tommy Chong on my show.
Wow, that's good shit, man. Like it's funny, with podcasts and all that stuff, and I'm sure you might have gotten this before, is I get people a lot of times, they're like, well, how'd you get the guests that you got? I was like, I asked. Like, the worst thing that can happen is they say no.
Exactly.
But like, and it relates back to pro wrestling. There's a term in pro wrestling called selling. You need to sell. You need to sell yourself. You need to sell that you got hurt. You need to sell to the people that you're the good guy or the bad guy you proclaim. You need to be able to know how to sell yourself. So, for anybody, listening to this, watching this, know how to sell yourself. Sit there, like I sit there, and people used to always tell me never name drop. Every time I send out my press thing for my podcast to try, I have every guest I've ever had on the show.
Oh, wow.
In that. Because it's helped me, because what'll happen is, let's say I have a wrestler on and I mention Al Snow, and they're like, hey, Al, you were on that Happy Hour podcast. How was that? Oh, those guys are cool. Definitely do it. And we've gotten guests that way, that they would see a name and be like, oh, we know that person. Hey, should I do this show? And they'll be like, yeah, so yeah, definitely learn, anybody out there, how to sell yourself and sell your product and sell your show. And, cause that's what's going to get you out there, is just putting the work in to do that.
Yeah. That's the one thing people don't understand is you do put in some work when you try to get guests on your show. For me, I look up social media, and if they had a website, usually if they have a website, they have, contact me such and such, and I'll write them a letter.
Yeah.
If it's say a musician, well, one of my biggest guests was Rudy Sarzo from Quiet Riot.
Okay.
And I mentioned that a lot, I know, but I mean, it's Rudy Sarzo.
Yeah.
And so if a musician I'm trying to get on the show, I'm like, hey, check this one out, and I'll send them the link to the interview I did with Rudy.
Yeah.
If it's an actor, I'll say, hey, I had Tommy Chong, or so and so, so and so, so and so. You drop those names, and a lot of
Yeah.
times they'll be like, well, if they gave you the time of day, maybe I need to give you the time of day.
Yeah,
You never
one
know.
thing that's funny with our show is very TVMA. Like we're very like Howard Stern, type show. And it's funny because one of our PR people sends us like, authors who's also a lawyer for a living. They're just like a lawyer. And it's like, yeah, I always express to people, I'm like, make sure they check out our show before they come on, because I don't want them to come on and then they're mortified about the things that we are talking about. And, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's also that we're also good readers of the room. Like we'll kind of like cross the line a little bit and see how they react to it. And if there's a little bit of pushback, we're like, okay, we'll kind of normalize this a little bit. But if they're cool, then we're like, okay, we can go balls to the wall and have a great time and talk about pretty much anything. So but yeah, man, it's been fun. I love doing the podcast stuff. Nothing will ever compare to the thrill or the adrenaline of performing live for pro wrestling. Nothing in this world will ever compare to that high. Like a lot of people say, it's like a high. Nothing will ever compare to that. But yeah, it's fun. It keeps me occupied.
Is there one episode that you've done that's kind of stuck out over the other ones and maybe got really, really crazy?
Um, I mean, they all get really, really crazy. Especially when we have the adult film stars on, because we like push the envelopes I mean, we were this past episode, and I'm not sure that I don't want to overstep boundaries on your show because I'm not sure the demographic that you have for your show, but we were talking to an adult film star and she was talking about getting a getting a butt plug stuck in her butt. And it pretty much led to the story of me going, well, kind of like if you held your nose and blew hard enough, would that fire out like a projectile, go through the wall and kill your neighbor? Like just kind of stuff like that, where like we just kind of fall down and like it's kind of like almost like the shit rolling downhill type thing, and the ball just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like we've had a lot of people on. I think my favorite was Wes Scantlin from Puddle of Mud. Really cool guy. But also when we had him on, if anybody goes to our YouTube, find that episode. Like at some point, he's just kind of like looking around and like doing like all kinds of like weird stuff with his phone. And I'm like, is this dude like he kept on smoking something out of like one of those e-cigarettes or whatever and all that. I'm like, is this dude like messed up? Like, and the interview was great. He kept the interview going, but when it was done, we just lost it instantly. Like, so like we were like, what was he doing? Like we weren't sure if he was just like kind of joking around or what was, but we were like laughing hysterically when it was done. But yeah, I think that because I'm a big rock, fan of rock music. We had Scott Page from Pink Floyd / Toto / Supertramp. He plays he plays the saxophone for them. He was on oh god, adult film stars, you name them, we probably had them. If not, we'll probably have them in the future. Doug Bradley, CJ Graham was cool because Friday the 13th Part 6 was my favorite out of the whole entire series. So, I knew a lot about that when we had him on. Man, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of one of those guys that I love all the work that I do, regardless what it is. Like I've had guests that I've had favorites. So honestly, some of our best episodes were episodes if our guests couldn't make it, and we're just kind of like, all right, we just need to go with it. Like everything we had is just now gone. Like any agenda or anything is just gone. Now we just have to go. And a lot of times, just working off the top of our heads, we end up, molding things into something good. So, but yeah, it's fun. There's something for everybody with the show. Just if you're under the age of 18, make sure you have your parents' permission before listening or viewing the podcast, because it is a mature audience podcast.
I mean, I guess a bit of a prude. I don't cuss simply because I've got grandkids now and I try to avoid it. But I've had guests that come on, they'll drop the F-bomb. They'll,
Yeah.
I don't care. You do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, just as long as we don't get too graphic and YouTube, I have to, bleep the whole thing out.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, he's a comedian, come on,
Yeah.
and he just went into a story and every other word was F this, F that. And I thought it would be funny if I just bleeped every word out and just had him, you just have the word and or the
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
between.
Well, yeah.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, because ours is very vulgar. Like we're very vulgar. There's a lot of cussing. Like for example, like the same episode this past week we had, our guest talked about doing a lot of fetish stuff. So it was us and a comedian, and so then we got into the rounds of we're like, well, what if we suggest something? What if we were to message you and go, would you do this? And I was like, what if I asked you to dress up like a beekeeper, and then I come over and you take a beehive and you just shove it up my butt? Would you do that if, I requested and I paid you to do that? She was like, well, yeah. And then, the comedian was like, well, what if we took like a moon bounce and covered it in jelly and I'm in a Kia Sorrento and, it just random off the wall, fun stuff like that where people are just kind of like, are we like, is this happening right now? Like, are we really listening to this? And it's just a fun time. Like we like to have fun, unfortunately, we live in a world where people get, really upset about things very, very easy. And I'm just kind of like, well, I mean, if that's the case, just don't listen. There's always the option of not listening. I'm going to be doing it regardless,
And see, I appreciate something like that.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, there was a group of us kids that, I mean, we weren't all the same color and we used to call each other every name in the book.
Yeah.
And we just had a good time. We laughed, we'd tell jokes about each other, the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah.
And nobody got offended by it.
Yeah.
And now you can't hardly say anything without offending somebody out there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think what it is, there's just so much out there where people like, there's so much content to be absorbed. Like when I was a kid, I didn't have a cell phone in front of my face. I didn't have a computer in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
I went outside and built forts, built a fort. And then we would go back the next day. There would be a homeless guy sleeping in the fort. And I'd be like, all right, Bob, come on, get up, get out of the fort. Like go to the liquor store, whatever. Like we're playing, like get out of here. And if you were to tell your parents that's something today, you'd never be able to go back to that fort ever again with your friends or anything like that. So, but no, I mean, it's just the whole thing of things change over time. So, and my dog just, I guess he wanted to say, hey,
what's up, puppy dog? Well, when we were kids, they say they didn't even have home computers when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And we would go out and like you build forts or pretend like we were in Star Wars or whatever, we did all this stupid stuff. Well, one of the games we liked to play was Tarzan. We had a rope tied to a tree and would swing. And anyway, this area in my backyard where I grew up, my dad had a shed back there at one time and tore it down. And it had been a while since he had torn it down. And the point I'm getting to is I was swinging and my buddy said, hey, it's my turn. I said, well, let me go one more time. And I swung. And when I landed, there was a board with a nail sticking out of it.
No.
And we didn't know it was there. And I mean, it went clear through my foot.
Oh, I've had that before. Actually, the fort. When I went to the fort one day, there was a board with a nail right through the center of my foot. And I just hobbled my butt all the way home, on that one leg.
This is the funny thing is as soon as I noticed it and I kicked my foot and the board flew off and I hit the ground and I'm telling my buddy, hey man, help me get home into the house. And he goes, I gotta go. And he ran off and left me there. Oh, those are fun times, man.
Oh yeah.
Those are fun times.
And I mean, that's the thing, like you got to understand with the pro wrestling aspect of it. I was still pretty much a kid when I started.
Mm-hmm.
I walked into a pro wrestling school for the first time at the age of 13. When you're 13, you don't really know anything about anything.
Right.
It was March of 1999. I turned 14 in April. So, I'm in a wrestling school with 30, 40-year-old guys just beating the crap out of me night after night, night after night, night after night. And, sure enough, at some point, I left training for a little bit, then went back. But when I was 19, I wrestled my first show and I knew everything I needed to know at that point, because I was like, hey, I've had 5 years worth of training almost at that point.
Yeah.
So, it worked out.
Whatever made you want to go do that?
Well, the whole thing is everybody. I always tell everybody, if you have a dream, go get it. Like,
Mhm.
that's, don't hold back on anything. If it's a podcast, if it's being a hot dog guy selling hot dogs on the corner, whatever, it doesn't matter. Go do that. Do whatever
Yeah.
you need to do that. Of course, I grew up watching pro wrestling. My mom and my dad watched pro wrestling. The first event I ever seen was Survivor Series 1990. Coincidentally, that's when The Undertaker debuted. One of my biggest idols in my life is The Undertaker, because I followed him his entire career. But no, I had the typical room where you had the whole entire wall was posters, all that. And I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I want to do this. And I was 13 and my dad was like, hey, I just got my taxes back. You have two options. I can save for you to get a car, or you can go to wrestling school. And you probably know what option I chose. I was like, well, I can get a car and all that later on. Like, I'm not worried about that. So
Right.
we just happened to see in the paper, hey, local wrestling. It was Bone Breakers Pro Wrestling Academy in Essex, Maryland. And it's funny. The school that I went to when I was 13 is actually now like 5 minutes away from where I live. It's no longer a school. It's now like some mechanical place or whatever. But you walked in and it was Planet Wrestling, and it was a wrestling store. And then when you walked in through the wooden shutter doors, there was a ring back there, and that was the Pro Wrestling Training Academy. So, that's how it all started. And then, all little fun stuff that came along with it. Like, I always tell people I have everything I have today, my job, my wife, everything. If I would have never became a pro wrestler, I don't know if I would have what I would have today, like my podcast and all that, because it all, pretty much came from that one decision. So,
Wow.
yeah.
It's amazing how a decision like that changes your life so much.
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
certain things that happen to you that changes your life. I don't want to get in talking about myself. This is your
Yeah.
time, but um, I have this disease in my spine where my bones start to deteriorate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, it's almost like stalactites and stalagmites in
Okay. Yeah.
between.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of that before.
Yeah, apparently it's onset from my diabetes, but I couldn't walk for a while. I was in a wheelchair. I've had about 3 surgeries. I'm more mobile, but I still can't do a lot of things that I used to do.
Yeah.
And when I first started podcasting, it was just a goof,
Yeah.
something to do. And whenever this happened with the whole thing with my spine, I was like, man, I don't want to sit around and just
Oh yeah.
deteriorate in my chair. I want to do something. And so I took it a little more serious and I have met so many great people. And I'm like you, I have authors on, I have actors, musicians.
Yeah.
I have life coaches that come on.
Yeah. And you meet a lot of great friends, like
Yeah.
people that you never thought that you would meet. Shout out Sherry Nelson. She was a Maximum model, and she also, has done some acting and all that. She sends us stuff all the time. Like, she'll see online, like we were, when we had her on our episode, we told her we never had the Metallica Black and Whiskey. So she found the Metallica Black and Whiskey. She sent it to us. She sent us some cookbooks that were done by all kinds of different rock stars, like recipes from every like popular rock star you could ever imagine. Like, she has sent us stuff for congratulations on 100 episodes, our 3-year anniversary. It's great. And it's amazing to have people like that you've had them on your show, and you touch them so much on your show, and they had such a great time that they want to send you things, or shout you out. And it's fun. It's a wild ride.
Well, I'll ask people for an autograph picture or something. And just because I want kind of a history of the people that have been on the show. And sometimes, man, they will send me hats, they'll send me books, they'll send me all kinds of stuff like that. And they'll be like, I've never been on a show like yours before. And I mean, there's some people that, when I was at high school, they were my heroes, and now I have their phone numbers, and I'm going, little old me, just because we clicked when we talked. That's one of the benefits of doing this. And then plus you inspire other people. That's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's funny because every episode I do, I mention almost every single episode pro wrestling, me being, a wrestler and all that. And, sometimes I think I'm like, some people don't get, or, the fans probably listening are like, okay, we get it. But yeah, it also goes back to that thing of you never forget where you came from. Yeah. Like, for some reason the podcast takes off or anything I do take off. It was because of the confidence I had. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you like it's nothing because pro wrestling, you get used to just being in front of large groups of people and have to perform and have to talk. And there is no once the show's live, oh, well, crap, I'm in the ring. I didn't say this right. Let me redo it. No, you need to be able to go. And we talked a little bit before we started. And I told you, I do our show live every week, every single week. It was Facebook Live, but Facebook's they'll ban you for sneezing the wrong way. So, we went to YouTube Live, and it's been great on YouTube Live, and people come in the thread and they chat. And sometimes, the show will train wreck, which we love it when it does that, but it'll train wreck more sometimes just by some of the comments or, things people ask, in the streaming part. And it's fun because, it allows people, to just have a good time and, all that. So.
But all the great people that have been on the show, I'd have to say one of my most favorite was Marcus Harvey from Ghost Brothers.
Okay.
That guy had me laughing so much I almost couldn't finish the interview. I love that. I love being able to just let loose, have a good time, laugh. And sometimes you get those that come on and they're interesting people, but you almost have to drag stuff out of them.
Yes. Like it's almost like the kind of thing, like you sit there, you're like, have you ever been interviewed before? I don't understand, because we'll get guests and I always love it. And I was always good with this because I knew from pro wrestling is you need to know how to lead an interview. Mm-hmm. And, if someone asks you a question at a wrestling show, you need to know how to lead the interview, because they're going to be like, oh, tonight, blah, 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 you're going against so-and-so, blah, 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 because that's all they're going to ask. So you need to know how to lead that interview. And I got really good with that. So sometimes we'll have guests on, and no matter how good I am leading an interview, I'll get like a one-word answer. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just kind of like, but then you'll get guests and they'll just, and I'll look and I'm like, man, that hour and 15 minutes, however long, because we always tell our guests, hey, we ask an hour, but then we're like, you can hang out however long you want. We don't care. We'll talk to you all night if you want to. But some guests will just sit there and we'll be like, man, like we didn't even get to any of the stuff that we even wanted to talk to, but that's great because
I love that too.
We got a lot out of it. So
have you ever had one of those guests that ask you if they can be on your show because they want to talk about something and they still give you 2 or 3 words to answer?
Yeah, like we get that, or we'll have people come to us and go, hey, can we come on to your show? One was an adult film star. I'm not going to name names, but my biggest thing is if you agree to do a show, granted, I'm not paying anybody to be on my show, but if you agree to be on my show and I pay the money to advertise you, because all of our graphic work is phenomenal. I learned from pro wrestling, nobody's going to buy into a flyer if it doesn't look like a wrestling flyer and it doesn't look like there's wrestlers on it and it doesn't look professional. Mm-hmm. So I spend the money to have the best graphics you can possibly have done up. People see me like, oh man, wow. It makes us look like we're the real deal, which, that's what you want. And, I'll sit there and put the money out, I'll put out the time, I'll advertise them. Sometimes we advertise some guests months in advance. And it's like, I'm promoting you, and like they'll reshare it on Twitter or whatever and all that. And then all of a sudden, okay, well, we always start like 30 minutes early to get the juices flowing. So we're at our best when the guests come on. And we'll sit there and be like, well, okay, well, so-and-so might be here soon. And then eventually we're just going, all right, well, screw it. I guess it's just going to be us tonight, guys. Apologize. And then, you'll get an excuse like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Like, I got caught in a rainstorm and my windshield wiper stopped working. And, I was just so stressed out. I'm like, but you knew you had our show. You shared it last night on Twitter and you came to us. It's not like it was something, oh, well, my dad died, or that's fine. That's 100% fine. But if you just know, they asked me if they could come back on. I was like, man, I'm just going to have to see if I can get you back on. I'm probably not going to put them back on because I'm not going to promote you again. And then you just end up doing it again. It's like, it's a waste of my time and, all that in the long run. So,
so do you have one that was like the worst guest ever?
Shout out to Eileen Shapiro. She sends me out a lot of our guests. She works with Jimmy Star. Jimmy Star has been in hundreds of just like small little parts in movies.
I've had Jimmy on the show.
What's up?
I've had Jimmy on the show.
Okay. Yeah. Jimmy's a great guy. I love Jimmy. Work with Eileen. They have a client named Randy Edelman. He's a music composer. And just from the start, like we never had any, like I've never had to send out a long email of, I will never have this person back on my show before. So, we're live and I get on and like, it's the kind of thing that our whole show is like, I go into it with the most minimal stuff in the world, and also Randy Edelman, he's a composer, like he did like the Lion King, all that stuff. Like I naturally just didn't know who he was. So, I'm asking him questions or whatever. And all that. He's like, oh, well, you didn't do your homework, blah, blah, this, that, and another. And then he's like, come on, guys. Like I need to get through this. Like I have like a football game I'm trying to watch or whatever and all that. And just stuff like that just kind of rubbed me. Eventually he kind of got cool, but it rubbed me the wrong way to the point to where, I reached out to Eileen and I'm like, hey, I don't want to have him back on my show. Like, we're so laid back, but the dude was just a jerk, towards the beginning, and it rubbed me the wrong way. Like it was one of those things where I cut it short. Like, I think we went like 35 minutes and I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. And then after that, we ripped them up. We just brutalized them. Like after it was done, I was like, I don't like doing that, but who are you to come on to my show? Like, there's so many podcasts where it's like that, but I look at it as, okay, well, you're a guest on my show. So you're coming onto my show. This is my thing. At any point you can leave. At any point I can ask you to leave. Like if you come onto the show, you don't like the content we have, you're more than welcome to leave. But, it's the kind of thing of, this is our show. So we're going to do this segment. We're going to do this segment, but also don't come on and be a jerk, because I'm not being a jerk to you. We have people who are probably going to watch whatever. And she's like, I apologize. He's like that. And, she showed him the message and like, he kind of like laughed. He's like, oh man, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, this, that, and another, and I was like, it's not a big deal. Like I'm over it, but that should have never happened. Like,
right.
I've had people who were much bigger than him on our shows. Like his episode drew barely nothing YouTube wise. Meanwhile, I've had adult film stars on that did like 40K in 3 days. Like, come on now. Like,
But aren't you, when you're doing an interview, you're supposed to ask questions that somebody who normally doesn't know that much about this person is going to want to know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said, and the premise of our show is that, okay, and I may have said this at the beginning, is that, we're sitting around at the table, we're drinking beer, and it's like the kind of thing, let's say I met Randy Edelman at a bar. Oh, well, this is Randy Edelman. Oh, okay. Hi, Randy. I have no idea who Randy is. So I'm just going to start asking questions. These are the same questions that I would ask, if I was meeting him for the first time. And I think what it is it's kind of like almost like an ego type thing. Like, oh, well, you're supposed to know who I am. But, all in all, it's water under the bridge, whatever. Will I have him back on the show? Probably not, because I'm just kind of like, whatever, you already ruined it. Like, our show could blow up and, be something huge. And it'd just be like, hey, sorry, bro. Like, you're on the blacklist. You're on the no list. Sorry. Like, oh, here's a good one. It wasn't a guest, but I had a guy I work directly. Shout out to Erica Icon. She's provided me a lot of our adult film star guests, Lauren Phillips, Natasha Nice, Karen Fisher, who's who. Like, she has a spot on our schedule 1 week out of every month. Sometimes if we have an extra spot, we'll give her 2 weeks out of every month. But there was a guy that reached out to me and he was like, "Oh, hey, I see you had Arietta Adams on. Is there any way you can, get me in contact with her or whatever?" Like he was messaging me, like I was like the direct representative for Arietta Adams. And I'm like, dude, like she's not my client. Like she was on my show. Like I'm not going to guarantee you like she's going to be on your show or whatever. And I was like, well, you're going to have to reach out to her PR person. And instantly, like I reached out, I'm like, hey, this other guy, blah, 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 to Erica. And Erica's like, oh, that guy.
Oh,
and I was
no.
like, what do you mean that guy? And she's like, well, he's on our no list because he's the type that like gets on, like he'll sit there and like if one of the girls, like, a thicker girl, he'll be like, oh, well, you're fat or whatever. And like just says like all these rude, demeaning things. And so, she told me that, and like Erica is great. Like our show wouldn't be what it was today if she didn't get us some of those guests. 'Cause some of those numbers we pulled were from guests she's gave us. And yeah, I pretty much messaged them back. I'm like, oh, it's Erica Icon. And I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, blah, blah. I forgot what I said, but I said something clever, and funny. And I remember her going, God, I love you, because I was just kind of like, hey, why are you reaching out to me? Like, aren't you on their, I think it was, aren't you on their no list? Like, so you're going to try to dance around getting to their PR person so you can have this person on your show or whatever and all that. I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to message all of the clients she's had now and go, if this guy reached out to you, do not respond to him. And all the podcast people that I know, do not let this guy, talk to any of these people. So, you run in, you get good shows, you get bad shows, you get good hosts, you get bad hosts, you get good guests, you get bad guests. Same thing with pro wrestling. You get fans who are happy with everything you do, and you get fans who just want to complain about every single thing that's wrong. And it's like, just, you bought a ticket, come and enjoy yourself. Just have fun. Enjoy the product. If you don't enjoy the product, don't watch it, don't listen to it, don't interact with it. Just don't do anything. Like
Well, when I have people on the show that they have their own podcast, a lot of times I will try to introduce them to a previous guest if they're cool. I would introduce you to some of my previous guests. So, and they've done the same thing for me. I think we should help each other.
Oh yeah, same thing. Like there's a guest we had on, you might know who he is, Bill Hartley. He was a part of Ghost of Shepherdstown.
Oh yeah.
He was on our show. He actually had what was it, the Baltimore Paranormal Society or something like that for a good while, and we had him on, and we were talking about him being a Civil War reenactor and just all kinds of stuff. One good thing that we did on our show, we play a game with all of our guests. It's called Incoherent. So pretty much what the game is it's a game where you hold up a card. Actually, I have one right here. So pretty much you hold up a card and it looks like that. Like I pretty much screen share, and that's what it looks like. And the person has to sound out the card. Now for that one, it's an inappropriate one. So, but I'm not going to say it just in case, but it's an inappropriate card. But we'll hold those up and there'll be hints on the back. And, some people either look at them like that, or some people will struggle with them. So what we did was, for our 100th episode, we did something that we called the Happy Hour Pod Rumble. And it was themed off the Royal Rumble. And I brought back 30 former guests. And everybody was like, how are you going to do this? It's going to be absolute chaos. And I was like, I don't know. And I don't care. But we're going to do it. And so, it was Jimmy Starr was a part of that. Like Nick Benson, a bunch of people from the paranormal world, an adult film star. Actually, Johnny Goodluck, who was the adult film star, he won it. And the way to get eliminated from that game was if you didn't get that card right. You got like what we called a hot tag, which you could use that to save yourself from elimination. But once that was gone, once you got eliminated, the last person standing would be the winner. And what I actually did is I got a championship belt made up and I sent it to him. And that was the thing. And everybody's like, oh man, this was great. You need to do it again, blah, blah, blah. And, it's just being innovative. Like, everybody's like, oh man, having 30 people on. But what filtered it out was the game, because we're playing the game. So at that point, not everybody's talking over everybody, because everybody's trying to kind of paying attention to the game and, what's going on with that. So it was fun. I always try to be different. You said you always try to do it. Like I always send a shirt out. We're super behind with a lot of them because we've had so many guests on, over probably about 100 guests. So we always try to send out a t-shirt, to every guest. And that helps out because it's the kind of thing someone sees a guest wearing a shirt. It's like, okay, their episode may have been 6 months ago, but 6 months later, just out of nowhere, Sarah J or whoever posts an image of them wearing our t-shirt that they have. And it's just kind of like, okay, now our social media is like, look, 1,000 notifications. You're like, well, somebody did something. And it's like, it helps. So, whatever helps out with getting foot traffic there and, doing stuff like this. I'm always like, hey, I'll talk about whatever you want. I don't care. As long as it's not politics or, anything like that, I will talk about literally anything you want. And I don't care. I'm an open book, and that's just how I am.
Yeah, our plan is to start sending stuff out to our guests too, but I haven't quite got there budget wise yet.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's a lot. Like I use Teespring, and
Yeah, I do
Teespring,
too.
like, yeah, they do half off of on the stuff. So that's what I do. I send samples, out to the guests because it cuts the price in half. But, I've been trying to get them out and all that stuff, but I mean, it helps, it's kind of a thank you for being on the show, but also it's kind of like a double standard because it's like, it's a thank you, but also if this person wears this shirt and posts it online, that helps us because at this point it's like, oh, well, I've seen like 17 people wearing this happy hour podcast shirt. What's up with this podcast? Like,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's all about, networking and, like that's the thing. Like if you do our show and all that, it's about networking. So anybody who wants to get into podcasting or is new in podcasting, learn how to network, like, because you got to be able to network yourself and get stuff out there and just keep things rolling. I'm sure you probably have all your interviews in line and when they're going to air and, when you're going to edit them up and all that. And I mean, we do live. So it's the kind of thing that some shows people are used to. Okay, every Friday night it airs at this time. Us, whatever the time is convenient to our guests. So that's when we go. Like we've done shows at 1:00 on a Saturday afternoon. We've done shows. I mainly try to do Friday at like 7:30. Lately, I've been lucky enough to do that. But if our guest is like, I'm not available that day, can you do this day? Okay, cool. Like there's been times where I've been booked solid with guests 5 months ahead of time. And people are like, how do you do? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's the way that it works out and falls into place. And, I like to have a plan and then 2 months beforehand, check back in. Hey, are we still good for this date? Check back in again, like a week before. Okay, night of, let's do this. Let's go. So,
well, the thing is don't be an a-hole.
Yeah.
And, help when you help others, they're more willing to help you.
Yeah.
That's what I love about doing this is all the people that I have met that I've become, good acquaintances or friends with, and then they introduce me to somebody else. I'll try to introduce somebody to somebody else, and it comes full circle.
Yeah.
It really does. And speaking of Jimmy Star, I tell you what, I did not expect to have a guy like him come on and be as cool as he was.
Oh,
he is such an awesome guy.
Super cool. He is super cool. Like we had him on. Now we've been working with Jimmy for a while, but we had him on around Halloween time. So we talked horror. He's a huge horror guy. Like he loves horror. Like I don't know if when you interviewed him, if you saw like all of his stuff in the background.
Oh yeah, sure did.
All the horror stuff, and yeah, like I mean that's just the whole thing. And he was just so down to earth. And actually what I'm doing now is I'm kind of scrolling through, like, I know you asked earlier about some of our favorite guests and all that. So I'm scrolling through on our website. If you go over to our website, the hhpod.com, go to episodes/guests, we have a full listing of every episode we had, the episode name, who the guest is. So if you go over to that hhpod.com/episode or go to episodes and guests, and that'll take you to where all of our guests are and all the episodes we've done. But yeah, Jimmy's a great guy. Like he
I love Jimmy. I could hang out with him easily.
Oh yeah, I talked to him. Like, has he been able to get you any guests on the show?
No, I haven't asked him to help me out in that department, but he said he was gonna send me a picture, but he hadn't done it yet.
Well, just talk to him and say, hey, can you help me out with any guests? And just tell him you know me. Just be like, hey, I had Ray from the Happy Hour podcast on my show. I'd be interested because they're always trying to get their guests on, wherever. So, if they send you Randy Edelman, he came from them, but it may be a different experience for you. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you go to a wrestling show and it's just a bad crowd, and then you go, you come back the next month and you're like, what happened? Like last month, like fans were awful. Like, why is it different now? But it's all in atmosphere. It's like when baseball players, they suck somewhere and then they get traded, halfway across the country, and then all of a sudden they work out, and it's like, it's just not every place is the same thing. But yeah, definitely reach out to him. He'll shoot you some people,
So
for sure.
Is there a guest that you haven't had on that you really want to come on?
Honestly, if there was a guest that I could have that, I would kind of fan out a little, like I want to fan out, but like, would kind of like mean a little bit more. I've always told people if I had Aaron Lewis from Stained on,
okay.
Yeah, that would be the one for me, because like me growing up, like, Stained came out around like 98, 2000, something like that. So their music has like always resonated with me. Anytime I was feeling happy, sad, depressed, stressed, whatever, their music has always been there.
Yeah.
So, Christ, when me and my wife got married, our first dance was Tangled Up in You by Stained. So, that being able to have him on the show would be something for me, like to where I kind of, I've had a lot of people on, but I would kind of feel like, okay, I could quit this podcast tomorrow and be satisfied with everything that I've done. And there's not a lot of guests and maybe The Undertaker, because that's the whole thing, / Steve Austin, because those are the two guys that inspired me to get into the wrestling business. So, but yeah, I think everybody has theirs. What are yours?
Oh man, if I had Gina Carano on, I would probably pass out because I'm in love with her.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to talk to Sully from Godsmack.
Oh yeah, Sully would be cool. Sully would be really cool. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely would love to. Actually, anybody from Godsmack, but especially Sully, because I want to pick that guy's brain so bad.
Yeah, we've had our fair share of people. As I said, we had Wes Scantlin on. He was cool. Sonny Sandoval, way back in the day, he was on the show. This was when we were doing a TV show. When we did a TV show, we had Adelita's Way on. So, I don't know if you've heard of In This Moment, Maria Brink, before they blew up huge, they were on the TV show that we did. So, yeah, man, it's just, it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, if I had a third to pick, I want Chris Pratt on the show.
Chris Pratt would be fun. I think actually same level as Chris Pratt. I think Ryan Reynolds. I think would be great for the kind of content that we have, because he could just Deadpool it up the whole time.
Oh, you'd never get a chance to say anything.
Oh yeah. It's like you can say whatever you want. We don't care. We're in this with you. Like, we're gonna be as corrupt and our brain rotting away as you are on this show. Like, but
yeah, I hear you. Okay, so what was that website again?
The website where you can find the show is www.thehhpod.com. So pretty much it's the Happy Hour Podcast, just abbreviated. I always tell everybody, go there to find everything, because everybody's like, oh man, the Happy Hour Podcast, like that's going to be hard to find. I'm like, that's what the TV show was, and what's funny, and not that I'll ever do it, but I actually looked up trademarks on the Happy Hour Podcast. There is currently not a trademark on Happy Hour Podcast. And part of me was like, like, if I really want people to find my show, I could trademark this and then just send out cease and desist. But I would never do that unless like I have someone pumping millions of dollars into the show and they're like, look, you need to trademark this, blah, blah, blah. But the HH Pod, that's what we abbreviate. We call it that on the show all the time, the HH Pod. So that's where everything is. Our social medias, of course, you can find us on social media pretty easy. Twitter is at the HH Pod. Instagram is the HH_pod. And Facebook, just look up the Happy Hour Podcast, and I'm always posting short little clips. I got to do it tonight too. Short little like 2-minute and 20-second clips from various episodes, plus some of my pro wrestling I put up there too, because Twitter only allows you to have 2-minute and 20-second videos. And I don't feel like making them different lengths for every social media platform, so they just stay at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. They make it easy. So, but,
yeah, I think that's what you get 2 minutes on TikTok.
Yeah,
something like that. That's
man, you're talking about a curse of a platform, man. That platform, like, initially I started doing clips again for that. And it is so hard. Like I'd rather lay in the middle of a field and be trampled to death by elephants than trying to make ground on TikTok, because goddamn, like it is so hard. If you're not doing a stupid dance or just something that's just completely out in left field, it's not going to go nowhere.
I think most of my videos, I get an average about 400 views. There's one video that I made, and it didn't have anything to do with the podcast. I put up a video that I made of Nancy Pelosi doing her little getting up and doing this thing, and the little gopher from Caddyshack.
Oh yeah.
And I said, who did it better? And they're both doing the dance, and I got them. I got Footloose playing, not Footloose. That I'm all right. That one I think I got 1,000 something views on, but for the most part, I really don't mess with TikTok that much.
Yeah, I don't either. Like mine's just mainly dedicated to Instagram. Like a lot of mine, Twitter. Like if I share something of like, one of the guests we had on, it'll make some ground on Twitter, pretty easy. Same thing with Instagram. Facebook, I have a personal Facebook page. I probably won't accept anybody on it. My Happy Hour Pod page, I'll accept whoever. Like Kyle, obviously I would accept you to that. But just random people. I used to get fans all the time on that, and it got to be much, to deal with on my personal Facebook. But my Happy Hour Pod one, I will literally accept anybody unless I know you're a bot, and then I'm like, no, not accepting.
Yeah.
Half naked Russian looking woman that
Oh man, I get those requests every freaking day. I kid you not.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show, and if the invitation's open, let me know when I can come on, and I'll.
Yeah, man. Yeah, as I said, you're more than welcome. Just be prepared. As I said, it's very Howard Stern, very man show, like over the top, TVMA type thing. It might take you a little bit out of your element, but it'll be fun, and it'll also get people familiar with your show, and whatever
awesome.
works.
That would be awesome, man. Really. Let me know. I'll make time for you, and be glad to.
All right, brother. Yeah, what we'll do is actually I know you're getting ready to wrap up. For anybody out there, anybody local to the Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, or Pennsylvania area, we're going to be doing a live show at a comedy club. It's going to be our first live show at a comedy club. That's going to be September 14th at 8:00 p.m. at the Church of Satire at 106 Broadway in Hanover, PA. It's a smaller venue, holds probably about like 40 people or so. Tickets are like $5. So if you want to come check out the show, have a little bit of laughs, I'm planning probably, if people see our show and see how vulgar it is, it's not going to be anything compared to what, the live show is going to be. So, definitely come out, have some laughs and have a good time. So,
Well, I'll have to check out the live show. I don't think I'll be able to make it all the way out there.
Yeah. Oh, it's no problem, man. We would love to have you on the live show. Make sure you comment in the live chat, because we're going to be rock and rolling the whole night. So
I'll appreciate that. And I also want to thank all of you out there. If you are new to the show, I hope you'll come back, but please hit that subscribe button. For my regulars out there, thank you. It's because of you I get to do this. And so until the next one, everyone, please take care and be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network